Hey gamers, it's eCartman12 here, as promised bringing you my review of Spider-Man Edge of Time for the 3DS. Sorry it took so long, but these reviews take time. Now please keep in mind that this is my first video game review ever, not counting my review of Ultimate Spider-Man for the Game Boy Advance. Now without any further ado, let's get on with the review. Story for this game. At the beginning of the game, we see the Amazing Spider-Man getting brutally murdered by Anti-Venom. After his death, we are then taken earlier in the future where Spider-Man 2099 is investigating Walker Sloan, an Alchemax scientist. Sloan travels back in time and changes something that affects both the Spider-Man's reality. We are then playing as Spider-Man 2099 and the Amazing Spider-Man, and the game leads up to the Amazing Spider-Man's death. Spider-Man 2099 uses Amazing Spider-Man's DNA and somehow using future technology has the ability to talk to Spider-Man inside his head, even though they are in completely different times. By doing this, the Amazing Spider-Man can change and destroy things in the past that will affect the future. The idea is called quantum causality. For an example, there is a situation where Spidey 2099 has to fight these big robots, so the Amazing Spidey destroys the robots from the past, and then therefore they don't exist in the future Spider-Man's time. If you have seen the movie Back to the Future, then you will be very familiar with this concept. From here, it is up to the two Spider-Men to stop Walker Sloan and reverse everything he has done. Controls for this game. Now the controls for both the Spider-Men is very similar. The control pad of course moves the web slinger around, and pressing the B button will make Spider-Man perform a jump. Pressing the A button will make Spider-Man shoot web shots at his enemies, which will blind and trap them for a certain period of time. Pressing Y utilizes Spider-Man's light attack, and pressing the X button will perform a strong attack. Pressing the R button when a platform is marked with a yellow circle allows you to web zip to it. Pressing and holding the R button will make the Spider-Man web swing. Pressing the L button will do slightly different things for both the Spider-Man. For Amazing Spider-Man, the L button will make him use his spider sense, which will allow him to pass through stuff such as lasers, enemies, and dodge attacks. Whereas pressing the L button as 2099 Spider-Man will allow him to make a decoy version of himself, which will distract enemies and cause them to fire at the diversion, while you run behind them and take them out, or run to a different location. And to climb onto a wall, all you have to do is just run into it and Spider-Man will start climbing. You can also do various button combinations to pull off all kinds of super moves and combos, such as pressing both the X and A buttons to grab an enemy, then you can unleash hell on them by pressing the Y or X button. And when it's charged, you can touch the touchscreen and Spider-Man will perform a paradox, which will slow time down and all enemies are frozen in time for a certain period, and you can easily take them out, although I didn't find myself using this feature. Time for the design for this game. The visuals for Spider-Man Edge of Time for the 3DS look awesome. Spider-Man himself looks alive, and as you progress further and further into the game, his costume will look really messed up, and it really shows the attention to detail the developers have done with the Spider-Men. Now just for clarification, the 3DS version of Edge of Time is actually a port of the Wii version, and the Wii version is also a port of the PS3 and 360 versions, but the 3DS version surprisingly looks slightly better than the Wii translation. The environments and everything else look identical, but the only thing in the graphical department that set the two apart is the Spider-Men themselves. Both Spider-Men look more detailed in the 3DS version than they do in the Wii version. However, Edge of Time for the Wii looks like the saturation is higher, therefore giving it a more cartoonish look, whereas the Spider-Men on the 3DS are less saturated and more detailed, and therefore they look like they are more on par with the console versions instead of the Wii version, which is interesting considering the 3DS version is actually a port of the Wii translation. So overall, the Spider-Man look amazing on the 3DS. The same can't be said for the enemies and environments, however. Sure, Anti-Venom looks great, but apart from them three, the other character models look like they had no attention to detail whatsoever. The environments that the Spider-Man encounter look different, but most of the stages look very similar, and as a result I don't feel like I am progressing through the building as the environments look more or less the same. A few stages like the ones you are seeing now are a nice change, but they don't look detailed enough to hold my interest. In fact, the thing I like most about this stage right here is that there is loads of space for me to web swing in, so overall the Spider-Man and Anti-Venom look great, but the rest of the game looks bland, dull, and boring. What I will give the developers some extra credit for though, is that the Spider-Man don't look over-detailed when compared to the environment. So when you are playing the game, you won't look at the Spider-Man and then look at the environment and think that the graphics look unbalanced. They look very well balanced, and the developers definitely deserve credit for that. The 3D effect. Now the 3D in this game was great. When running around and fighting the thugs and Anti-Venom, the 3D really added to the whole experience and was a joy to look at. However, the best parts of the game to use the 3D in is Spider-Man 2099's free-falling stages.
What's happening? Nothing good. What's it say on your end? That chick dies in and out.
The 3D really helped me judge distance and made the rather challenging free-falling levels easier, and I could see all the obstacles that were in my way that I had to evade. So overall, the 3D in this game is not the best, but definitely added to the whole experience, especially when free-falling as Spidey 2099. Time for the bad aspect. Okay, now the Spider-Men fight a lot of bad guys in this game, but the only bad guys they don't fight are the main villains. Now obviously you fight Anti-Venom a few times, but apart from him, the only bosses you will encounter will be Black Cat and another villain at the end, which I will not mention as it will be a huge spoiler. That is a big shame. I really liked fighting Anti-Venom, but the fight with Black Cat feels out of place as there is no real reason why she should even be in this game. Everyone else's story in this game is pretty much perfect, but why Black Cat? What role does she play in all this? When you actually encounter her, I didn't buy pretty much anything she was saying, and there does not seem to be any real reason as to why she is even in this game. The developers were probably thinking that we should just throw another villain in there, and they chose Black Cat at the end, which was a very bad decision, and I don't even need to go into detail about why. Another thing which I couldn't stand in this game is the audio and graphic glitches that you will tend to encounter a lot more than you would expect. Now first let's talk about the audio glitches. When you are playing the level where the Amazing Spider-Man is dying and Spider-Man 2099 is trying to get there as fast as he can while fighting a lot of thugs at the same time, the music turns really epic and it changes the whole mood of the game. And you just want to get to Spider-Man as fast as you can to save him, and whilst you're fighting and finding your way to Spider-Man, the music is still very epic, and it makes the game feel really fast-paced, and I love everything about that moment in the game. But that part of the game is completely ruined for me quite a few times when I replay the level, as the music changes to this very dull and out-of-place score. The music is just completely out of place, and it does not even suit the tragic moment, and it just ruins the whole level for me. You guys might be thinking that I am complaining about a small thing, but in my book, the music can either make or destroy the game, and when the game does not play the epic soundtrack, but instead plays the one that is out of place, then that certainly destroyed the level for me. As for graphical glitches, there is many times where you have to jump into a vent, and whilst I'm trying to crawl into it, Spider-Man just shakes like he's had a sugar overload, and he does not get into the bloody vent. Also, when you have to get to a certain door before the time runs out and the door locks, Spider-Man is still in the middle of a sugar overload and does not climb into the vent. When that happens, what you have to do is go back to the computer and reactivate the switch to open the door. It is just a complete and utter annoyance and shows that the developers gave no polish to this game, and that takes away from the overall experience. Also, completing the in-game challenges is next to impossible, especially if you're trying to get a gold medal. It is an absolute joke, and unlocking the costumes is also not an easy task. Another thing I didn't like about this game is the replay value. The game only took me 6 hours and 30 minutes to complete, and once completed, there is nothing that you can do except replay the game, try to complete the ridiculously hard challenges, and try to unlock the ludicrously high XP upgrades that increases the Spider-Man's armor and health, etc. Time for the good aspect. Now, despite all the bad things I said about the level where you have to save Spider-Man before he dies, it is still a great level and personal favourite of mine. The music that plays is absolutely epic, and the way the two Spider-Men communicate with each other is awesome. There is even a time when Spider-Man gives Spidey 2099 brave last words. It just flows very well with the gameplay, and it really made you feel like you were rushing for time. Another thing I liked was the graphics. Like I stated earlier, the Spider-Man look more comparable with the console versions and are very detailed, more so than the environments, and somehow the game still manages to not look over-detailed in some aspects and not in the others. But overall the game looks great, especially on the 3.5-inch screen.
Tell me when you're there as well. We have to time this right.
You got it, Miguel.
Oh, how nice. You and your counterpart are on a first-name basis now. It's good to know you've bonded.
Who are you?
I'm the CEO of Alchemax. The real question is, who are you, old friend?
Old friend? So this is where you make the big reveal, and I say, holy cow, Norman Osborn, or the Kingpin, Jonah Jameson. Come on, please be Jameson.
Another thing I loved was the Spider Sense. It is a time and lifesaver, as it tells you where you need to go and points you in the right direction every single time, and the game was overall easier with that ability. Also, the first 30 minutes of this game played like a CGI movie, which was absolutely awesome. Another awesome feature this game has going for it is the 3D effect. The 3D in this game is fantastic. It adds depth to the screen, and also you can see the distant characters in the far background, and the game does help you judge distance, especially when you are freefalling as Spider-Man 2099. Enabling the 3D when freefalling was a real treat, and it really helped me judge distance and evade the various obstacles that were in my way. It did not strain my eyes either. All I had to do was find my sweet spot, and then I could use the 3D for hours. So, in conclusion, this was a decent Spider-Man game. This game did have its problems, but was not at all a fob job of a portable game like Spider-Man Web of Shadows for the PSP was. So I give Spider-Man Edge of Time for the 3DS a 7 out of 10. If you want a superhero game on your 3DS, this is the best one to pick up. So that wraps up the review of Spider-Man Edge of Time. If you guys liked it, please thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. It's free for you and good for me. Thank you very much for watching, and until we meet again, gamers, have a great rest of the day.